Imagine facing, 50 years in federal prison.
Right, and not for something like robbing a bank.
Exactly. Not for corporate espionage either, but for literally hiding in an unlocked MIT broom closet with a laptop, just trying to download academic articles.
Articles that, I should add, were already funded by your tax dollars in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like some kind of dystopian novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is the actual documented true story of one of the internet's most important architects.
It really is. And it forces this complete reevaluation of how we view the foundations of the web.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're so used to that classic Silicon Valley narrative, right? Where a brilliant coder builds a digital fortress, pulls up the drawbridge, and then just charges everyone admission.
Right. The monetization of access is basically the default now.
Exactly. But today, we're looking at a master builder of that very infrastructure who genuinely believe those gates shouldn't exist at all.
And that is exactly the mission of our deep dive today.
Right.
We are pulling from a really comprehensive Wikipedia article that details the life, the massive technological contributions, and, well, the truly tragic death of Aaron Swartz.
It's a heavy story, but so important.
It really is. We want to understand how a teenage programming prodigy literally shaped the architecture of the internet you use every single day.
Yeah.
And how his absolute refusal to accept artificial digital scarcity led to a fatal collision with the United States justice system.
Right, because his impact is everywhere. I mean, if you have ever read a blog using an RSS feed, or if you've ever used an image with a Creative Commons license.
Or even just lost an hour browsing Reddit, honestly.
Oh, totally. If you've done any of that, your digital life has been fundamentally shaped by Aaron Swartz.
His footprint is just woven into the fabric of how we consume information online.
It really is. But to really grasp the magnitude of his later battles against the system, we first need to, understand his profound early success.
Right.
He didn't start as some outsider throwing rocks at the fortress. He was inside drawing the blueprints.
Yeah, and his early resume legitimately reads like science fiction.
Oh, it's insane.
I mean, at 12 years old, he creates the Info Network, which was this user-generated encyclopedia that actually wins the Ars Digita Prize.
Yeah, and then at 14, he becomes a member of the working group that authored the RSS 1.0 specification.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second.
Yeah.
Because he was like the unseen digital architect of the internet's plumbing.
That's a great way to put it.
But let's actually pause on RSS, because I feel like it perfectly illustrates his underlying philosophy, even at 14.
Yeah, let's do that. So RSS stands for really simple syndication.
Huh.
And before RSS, the website basically held all the power.
Right.
If you wanted to know if your favorite blog or, news site had updated, you had to manually go to their homepage.
You had to remember to check it.
Exactly. You had to navigate their layout, look at their ads, and just play by their rules to check for new information.
And RSS just flipped that entire power dynamic over to the user.
It completely did. Swartz helped write the foundational code that allowed the pure information to be extracted and sent directly to you.
It's basically the technology that makes podcasts automatically download to your phone, right?
Yes. You don't have to check a website. The web comes to your personal reader. It completely decentralized the flow of information.
And he did that at 14 years old.
Yeah, 14.
It's wild. And then by 15, he's helping design the technical architecture for Creative Commons.
Right. The organization dedicated to making copyright licenses way more flexible for creators.
Exactly. Then he drops out of Stanford after just a year, joins the very first Y Combinator Summer Founders Program, and creates something called the Web.P framework for his startup, Infogami.
Right.
And I want to make sure we really understand the mechanics here. What exactly is a framework in this context?
Well, think of a framework like the pre-built foundation and the load-bearing walls of a digital house.
Okay.
If you want to build a complex website, coding it brick by brick from absolute scratch just takes massive amounts of time.
Oh, sure.
So Swartz built the system, Web.Py, that just handled all the repetitive structural code. It basically let developers just install the plumbing and paint the walls, so to speak.
Which obviously became massive because when his struggling startup Infogami eventually merges with another little startup, he officially becomes a co-founder of Reddit.
Yep.
And that Web.Py framework he built is actually used to rewrite Reddit's entire code base.
And then the site just explodes in popularity.
Right. And in 2006, Reddit is sold to Condé Nast, the publisher of Wired magazine.
So he essentially achieves the ultimate tech lottery dream.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a millionaire before he can even legally order a beer.
That is just crazy.
And he moves out to San Francisco with the company to step into the whole corporate world.
But according to the sources, he absolutely hated it.
He really did.
By 2007, he's actually asked to resign from Reddit. He even wrote on his blog that the corporate world was making him go crazy, like forcing him to think about money all the time.
Yeah, he was miserable.
Which leads to a huge question. Why does a young genius actively walk away from a lucrative path that literally thousands of developers would kill for?
Well, his definition of value is just fundamentally incompatible with corporate tech.
How so?
Swartz was realizing that his elite coding skills were, mostly being used to optimize ad revenue and user retention.
Ah, right.
His interests were shifting towards civic awareness. To him, knowledge and technology were only really valuable when applied to societal issues.
So building platforms just to generate corporate profit margins felt like a waste of his potential.
Exactly. And rejecting the corporate track entirely naturally paves the way for his next phase. He pivots hard to hacktivism.
He decides to use his prodigy-level skills to aggressively unlock civic information.
Yes.
In 2008, he publishes the Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto. And it is this fiery document calling for activists to fight back against systems that hold academic research and public data hostage behind paywalls.
Right.
He basically argues that locking up the world's scientific and cultural heritage is a profound moral failing.
But writing manifestos doesn't actually free any data on its own.
True.
He needed a target to test this philosophy on, and he found a glaring, hypocritical bottleneck sitting right inside the federal government.
The PACER system.
The PACER system.
So PACER is the database for U.S. federal court documents. And the sources note a really crucial legal fact here.
Yeah.
Federal court documents are public records.
Yes, they are legally exempt from copyright.
Yet the government was charging 8 cents a page to access them.
Exactly. And they were running a massive budget surplus of around $150 million from it. They were essentially taxing citizens to read their own laws.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, an open government activist named Carl Malamud had been trying to solve this.
Oh, right.
He set up a system asking people to legally download these documents during a free trial offered at Sultan Library terminals,
Right.
and then send those files to him so he could build a truly free public database. It was a noble effort, but crowdsourcing it manually like that was just incredibly slow.
So Swartz sees this and applies his particular set of skills.
Naturally.
He writes a Perl script, which is essentially an automated digital retriever, and he uses credentials from a Sacramento library.
Right.
And over a couple of weeks, in 2008, his script pulls down about 2.7 million federal court documents.
Yeah, he single-handedly grabbed around 20% of the entire database.
That is wild.
And the FBI actually launched an investigation into him for this.
Really? For public documents?
Yeah. They spent 2 months looking into the massive download, but ultimately they closed the case without filing any charges.
Because they were public.
Exactly. He hadn't stolen anything. He had just aggressively sped up the process of accessing what already belonged to the public.
But getting on the FBI's radar clearly didn't slow him down at all. If anything, it emboldened him.
Oh, definitely. It showed him the raw power of applying code to political bottlenecks.
Right. So by 2010, he co-founds the advocacy group Demand Progress, scaling up his activism significantly.
And Demand Progress became absolutely instrumental in fighting SOPR.
The Stop Online Piracy Act.
Yes. This was a massive congressional bill backed by major legacy entertainment industries.
I remember this being huge.
It was. Critics warned that SOPA would allow the government and corporations to easily shut down entire websites based on mere accusations of copyright infringement.
Wow.
It basically threatened to break the fundamental decentralized structure of the entire internet.
So Swartz rallies, 300,000 petition signers?
Yep.
And he helps orchestrate what was described as the largest internet protest in history. Over 115,000 websites, including Wikipedia and even his former company Reddit, participated in these massive blackouts.
And they win. They successfully halt the bill.
But I'm trying to connect the dots here. How does liberating mundane court documents in PACER conceptually lead to orchestrating a massive political campaign against a major congressional copyright bill?
What's fascinating here is that, to Swartz, there was absolutely zero separation between those two actions. Yeah. Whether it was the syndication code of RSS, the legal documents sitting in the PACER database, or the copyright enforcement proposed by SOPA, he saw it all as part of the exact same system of information control.
Oh, I see.
SOPA was an attempt by legacy industries to lock down the architecture of the internet. PACER was the government locking down public law. He viewed both as artificial scarcity designed to keep power centralized.
Okay, so he had taken on the federal courts, he had taken on Congress, and he had won.
He had.
But his belief that knowledge should be free eventually led him to an action that the government absolutely would not ignore.
Right.
In late 2010 and early 2011, Swartz is a research fellow at Harvard University, and he sets his sights on JSTOR.
So JSTOR is this massive, subscription-based digital repository of academic journal articles.
Okay.
And as a Harvard fellow, Swartz already had authorized access to it. But he didn't just want to read a few papers for some research project. He wanted to liberate the database.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because to do this, he doesn't hack in from some dark room in another country.
No, not at all.
He utilizes the network at MIT. Now, at a time, MIT maintained a deliberately open campus policy and an open network.
Right.
Visitors were authorized to access JSTOR through MIT's internet.
Right.
So he physically goes onto the MIT campus, finds a controlled access wiring closet, which was reportedly kept completely unlocked, goes inside, and literally plugs his laptop directly into a networking switch.
It's almost hard to believe.
It is.
And he runs a script to bulk download the academic articles. And the sheer volume of the data transfer was just staggering.
How much data are we talking about?
Well, at its peak, his script generated over 200,000 download sessions in a single hour.
Oh my God.
It was so aggressive that it slowed down JSTOR's live site and temporarily crashed their servers.
So MIT and JSTOR figure out what is happening, right?
Hey.
And they place a hidden camera in that unlocked closet.
Yep.
They actually catch him on tape replacing a hard drive. And on January 6, 2011, Aaron Swartz is arrested by MIT police and the Secret Service.
That's right.
But the sources reveal a really vital detail about the immediate aftermath. JSTOR figures out who he is, and they actually settle with him civilly.
Yeah, this is key.
He surrenders all the downloaded data, and JSTOR explicitly asks the government not to pursue a criminal case against him.
They secured their data, they understood his motivations, and they honestly just wanted to back off. They had no interest in seeing a brilliant young researcher destroyed over this.
Right. So let's look at the mechanics of the alleged crime. I mean, it's like leaving the library door wide open, but then prosecuting someone for checking out too many books.
It's a great analogy.
A lot of people initially frame this as stealing books from a library. But it wasn't like taking books out of a library in a wheelbarrow, depriving everyone else of reading them. It was like bringing a lightning-fast photocopier into the library, copying every page, and leaving the originals perfectly intact on the shelf. The library lost 0 books. JSTOR got their copied data back and dropped the issue. So why on earth is the Secret Service and the federal government swooping in so aggressively to prosecute what looks like a victimless crime?
Well, the justice system was really grappling with how to interpret and enforce early internet laws.
Okay.
The federal prosecutors, led by U.S. Attorney Carmen Ortiz and Assistant U.S. Attorney Stephen Hyman, they did not view this as some library dispute or a philosophical protest.
How do they view it?
From their perspective, they were looking at a massive cybercrime. They saw an intruder who had circumvented network limits to extract millions of dollars worth of proprietary data.
Which brings us to the actual court case. United States v. Aaron Swartz. The tool the prosecutors used was the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, or the CFAA.
And the CFAA is a really crucial piece of context here. It is a law written way back in the 1980s.
Wow.
Yeah, lawmakers literally drafted it because they were terrified after watching the Matthew Broderick sci-fi movie War Games.
Wait, really? The movie where a teenager accidentally hacks into a military supercomputer and almost starts World War III?
That exact movie. So applying a law born out of 1980s sci-fi panic to a 2011 terms of service violation over academic articles, well, it created massive legal friction.
I bet. So the prosecutors charged him under the CFAA and with wire fraud.
Right.
And just to be clear, we are just reporting the facts of the indictment here.
Exactly.
In September 2012, they filed a superseding indictment that added 9 more felony counts. And looking at it strictly from the prosecutor's side, they argued his conduct warranted severe punishment.
Yes.
This escalation increased his maximum potential criminal exposure to 50 years in prison and $1 million in fines.
I mean, imagine the psychological weight of facing 50 years in prison for trying to make academic papers free to read.
It's almost unimaginable.
The toll of that number is just difficult to overstate. He was in his mid-20s, having spent his entire life trying to build open, decentralized systems.
Yeah.
He tries to liberate academic papers largely written by researchers who aren't even paid by JSTOR and that are funded by taxpayer grants.
Right.
The primary victim says, "Let it go." And suddenly, the full might of the United States federal government is telling him he might not see the outside of a prison cell until he is in his 70s.
Now, the prosecutors did offer a plea deal. They offered to recommend a sentence of 6 months in a low-security prison.
They did.
But to secure that deal, Swartz had to plead guilty to 13 federal felonies.
Which he rejected.
Yeah. He and his legal team opted for a trial, forcing the prosecutors to actually justify their pursuit to a jury.
And during the pretrial process, prosecutors allegedly planned to use his 2008 Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto against him.
As evidence.
Yes. They were essentially building a narrative of a dangerous anti-government radical rather than a researcher who just crossed a line downloading files.
But his defenders and legal scholars viewed the government's approach very differently.
Completely differently.
For instance, former Nixon White House counsel John Dean publicly criticized the prosecution. He called it overzealous and Nixonian, characterizing it as massive overcharging just to force a plea deal.
This raises an important question, though.
What's that?
How does society treat people who break into or exploit computer systems not for personal financial enrichment, but to disseminate information?
Right. That's the core issue.
The prosecutors argued a crime is a crime regardless of the philosophical motive, while his supporters argued the justice system was crushing a visionary over a technicality.
And the pressure of this federal case dragged on for 18 agonizing months. It totally drained his financial resources.
It terrified his friends who were actually being served with subpoenas.
Wow.
Yeah, it profoundly isolated him. And the relentless compounding nature of that pressure proved utterly devastating.
It's just incredibly tragic. On January 11th, 2013, at just 26 years old, Aaron Swartz was found dead in his Brooklyn apartment.
Yeah.
He had taken his own life. No note was found.
It's heartbreaking. And the response from the internet community was just immediate and explosive.
Oh, absolutely. The Hacker Collective Anonymous took down MIT websites and the U.S. Sentencing Commission website, leaving tributes to Swartz and demanding immediate copyright reform.
Right.
Over 50,000 people signed petitions on the White House website, demanding that the prosecutors, Carmen Ortiz and Stephen Heyman, be fired.
His family and his partner also released a blistering public statement. They explicitly blamed decisions made by officials in the Massachusetts U.S. Attorney's Office and the inaction of MIT for contributing to his death.
MIT did eventually commission an internal review led by Professor Hal Abelson.
They did, yeah.
And the report cleared MIT of direct wrongdoing regarding the criminal charges.
Yeah.
But it explicitly highlighted a pretty painful irony.
Right, that despite MIT's outward global advocacy for open access to information.
Exactly. The university never extended that institutional support to Aaron Swartz when he desperately needed it.
They chose to remain essentially neutral, cooperating with the prosecution, which his allies saw as a deep institutional betrayal.
But out of that immense tragedy, his legacy actually sparked immediate, tangible action across the globe.
It really did. The day after his death, academics around the world launched the PDF tribute movement.
I remember seeing that online.
Yeah, researchers just began openly sharing their own copyrighted academic papers online, defying paywalls with the hashtag PDF tribute.
He had also been working on privacy software called Deaddrop, right? Designed to let whistleblowers anonymously share documents with journalists without being tracked.
Yes, and after his death, the Freedom of the Press Foundation took over the code, finished it, and launched it as SecureDrop.
Wow.
It is now utilized by major news organizations worldwide to protect sources.
Lawmakers also attempted to address the legal mechanisms that led to his prosecution. Representative Zoe Lofgren introduced Aaron's Law, which was a bill designed to reform the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act.
Right. The goal was to specifically stop terms of service violations, like downloading too many files, from being treated as severe federal felony.
Now, while Aaron's Law unfortunately stalled in committee, another piece of legislation inspired by him did gain traction. The Fair Access to Science and Technology Research Act, or FSSTR, actually prompted the White House to issue a directive.
Oh, right.
It required federal agencies with large research budgets to make their taxpayer-funded research publicly accessible online.
So Aaron Swartz didn't live to see these changes, but his life, his code, and the tragedy of his death effectively forced the open access scholarship movement out of the fringes of academia and into the mainstream public consciousness.
Yeah.
He fundamentally shifted the global conversation about who owns human knowledge.
So to summarize, Aaron Swartz was an incredibly complex prodigy. He built the foundational tools that make the modern decentralized web functional.
He really did.
But he ultimately became a martyr for the unwavering belief that human knowledge belongs to everyone, not just those who can afford the institutional entry fee. So what does this all mean for us today? The next time you hit a paywall on a research paper, the next time you click agree on a massive copyright notice, or the next time you seamlessly use an open source tool, realize that you are navigating the exact battlefield that Aaron Swartz dedicated his life to fighting on.
Because the architecture of the internet is not a natural phenomenon like gravity.
Right.
It is built by people making deliberate choices about who gets to know what and who profits from that knowledge.
Which leaves a final provocative thought for you to mull over. The brilliant original architects of the early internet intended it to be a frictionless, decentralized exchange of free information.
That was the dream.
Given that how much of our current digital reality is actually built on the exact locked gates and artificial scarcity that Aaron Swartz warned us about? And are we, simply by accepting our daily internet habits, passively holding the keys without ever bothering to unlock the doors?